Hello, my name is Brittany Dinkins, and today I will be talking to you guys about why women, the lack of the lack of media exposure that women basketball gets, both on a professional level and a D1 level. Three things that I will mention. I will talk about the sponsorship. I will talk about the fan support, and the last thing I will talk about is the difference in men basketball. First off, sponsorship. Sponsorship is something that is well needed in getting exposure. It is something that is very important for anything that is trying to get on the market. Women basketball today lacks that exposure versus men. Men, you hear about it on TV. You have talk shows about the professionals that play the game, and you have talk shows about the dudes that play at a collegiate level in college. But for women, it's rare that you get it. The odd thing about that is you would get more media coverage off of women basketball on a collegiate level than you will on a professional level. Granted, I understand that on a collegiate level, it's more exposure going on because of how the school promotes the games with any sport that goes on in a college atmosphere. And when you're big time as far as SEC and in those big divisions, the ACC, those are big divisions, college collegiate basketball for both men and women. And when you're at a lower collegiate level, as far as D1, it'll be mid-major, and then you have D2 and D3. Things and programs like that don't really get much exposure as they do at high D1s, such as the SEC and the ACC. Sponsorship goes a long way, especially for the professional level, because what it does is it allows the money to flow in for these teams to have access to jerseys, to have access to shoes, to have access to warm-up shirts, jumpsuits, things for them to travel in. So these being sponsored plays a big role in teams being exposed to things because, for example, if you're sponsored by Nike, we all know Nike is a well-known big brand for things, and if you're sponsored by Nike, you could get anything of Nike. You know, Nike has socks, they have headbands, they have clothes, they have workout gear, they have jumpsuits, and all these things. And so if you're a team that's sponsored by Nike, which recently at Southern Miss, I was on a team. I was here on the team, and we were sponsored by Nike, and the things that we had to wear and stuff like that, it had to be Nike. Had to be nothing else but Nike. Things of that nature. When you're sponsored by an organization, you are to stay true to that organization and wear their brand. If you get caught wearing outside of their brand, it can cause a lot of issues for that program and things of that nature. So it's very important to be sponsored by a good big organizations such as Nike, you have Adidas, you have Under Armour. And so these brands and stuff like that are good to be sponsored by. And that's what draws the money in for these teams to have gear, to have a bag to carry, to walk around in, to have shoes to play in. And interesting fact that I think you should know is when you're not sponsored by that brand, Nike, Adidas, or Under Armour, you cannot wear it. You can wear it, but you will have to cover it up because you're not officially sponsored by them. And so that is what, these professional players on the women's level are struggling with, not being sponsored by a specific brand. And so they have to cover these things up. And that is what lacks us getting exposure on that type of level than it is collegiate level. We get a little bit exposure, but not as much as, men get on this collegiate level. And we oftentimes get men, we see they're sponsored by Jordan and things like that. You see I believe Georgetown is a team that is sponsored by Jordan, and so for the men's side, they get all of those things. Next thing I want to talk about to you, transitioning over into the fan support. Actually, where does the fan support comes into play? Fan support is very, very important with anything, not just basketball, not just with sports, period. But fan support is what allows to sell tickets. That's pretty much the bottom line of it. For example, I can use celebrities as an example and artists for an example about how they make their money. You know, when an artist such as Chris Brown go on tour and Beyonce, when they have tours and things like that, the fans that go and purchase their tickets to go to their concert, that's how they get their money. And it's the same way here on this level dealing with sports and basketball. For women, we don't have enough fan support. Excuse me. For women, we don't have enough fan support, and so that's what kind of kicks us down a lot versus the sponsorship. And when you have fan support, you have fans coming out to support, not only to just pay for tickets to watch the game, but to even buy gear. Fan support to buy gear, to buy the what I'm trying to think of a name for them, but bobbleheads, you know, things like that. We have all that going on for the men. We have their jerseys being sold in stores, and we don't have that for women on a professional level. We don't have women basketball jerseys being sold. We don't have them being ordered. And why do you think is that? It goes back to the sponsorship of getting that exposure and things like that, and getting them out there and having talk shows such as men have. But we don't have that, and because we don't have that, people know little about the great players that are playing at a professional level for our women. And because they're not exposed, and their greatness is not being achieved, is not being broadcasted out there like the men, little people know about women basketball unless you have to really be a fan. Such as me growing up, following players in college level and knowing that they make it to the pro and just following them there. So that's how I know certain people and players that play in the WNBA. And I also noticed that as great as a player that they are at this professional level, they still lack the exposure and the acknowledgement that they're getting. Women exposure, fan support has been a deficit for years. I can say that it has gotten better over the years, little by little, but we still kind of in the slump of getting people to support and get people to just be all in and involved in women basketball and getting us out there, getting our words and things like that. Finally, I want to talk about the difference in men and women. I know I mentioned some as I've spoken about sponsorship, and I've mentioned some differences when I spoke about the fan support. But the difference in men is an important thing is you have to pay attention to the time frame. What I mean about the time frame is think about the time men games are being broadcast and think about the time women games are being broadcast. They're on total two different scales of availability for the world to see. Indeed, there are women games that do take place later, but because, again, lack of exposure, not enough it being broadcasted on TV, and not enough fans following women basketball because they know nothing about it, no one knows when games are being showed or being televised. And so, and that's the difference. And because majority of women games, you will see that will happen during the day. And around the time during the day, you have people that are working. You have people that are getting off work. And because, again, lack of exposure, once again, people are unaware of what time the game is. And because the game are being played at such an earlier time, people are working, people are on lunch breaks, people are trying to get home from work, versus a men game that always takes place at a later date, like 8 o'clock, like 7 consistently. People have time to get off of work, go rest, and still have time to either tune in television-wise or if they purchase tickets to go to the game and make it on time. And their time frame from a game is way more reliable, way more beneficial for people to catch their games and to tune into their games based off the times that are being set to broadcast their game, as well as the network stations that their games are being played on, such as ESPN, TNT, things of like that are big sports network that people often tune into. As for women, we might get a couple of games on ESPN, but it'll be ESPN and things like that. And once again, like I mentioned, the time frame plays an important part, an important role in why women basketball is not being supported, nor is it getting any exposure. Another difference is, again, the rules of how women basketball is being played. If you look at men basketball that's being played, it's more physical. You know, you can say, for one, I'm just gonna be honest about dunking. Men dunk. You know, women, we don't have that type of um strength and physicality to do that. Some people now do it, but we don't do it as often as men do it. And I can see that being one of the big difference. I've heard people just talking, having a conversation with people that, you know, men, they do a lot and they bring more excitement and things like that, which is true. I'm not, you know, knocking anything. I understand that men game is quite fun to watch when you got somebody that can dunk on somebody else. But that doesn't take away from the fact that women basketball is exciting as well. Even though we can't do such exciting thing as dunking, we do bring something valuable to the game. We do bring our energy, and because we don't have that, I feel like us as women basketball players, we try even harder. You know, we work and we perfect our craft even more just to find a way to make it entertaining for our fans to watch. In closing, I mentioned to you about the sponsorship, the lack of it, how important it very is in order to get a team on start, in order to get a team going, in order to get a team out there, sponsorship, in order media coverage and things of that nature. I talked to you about the fan support that is very huge in anything. And for basketball, it is one of the main things that we as athletes do it for our fans and for the people that we do it for. And lastly, I mentioned to you the difference of men basketball versus women. I hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.